There's a widely believed myth in the world of health and fitness that exercising more automatically leads to fat loss. And on the surface, it seems logical. Burn more calories, lose more fat. But the neuroscience and physiology tell a deeper, more surprising story. In fact, research from the Journal of Obesity and studies from the National Institutes of Health show that the body adapts to increased physical activity by becoming more energy efficient. It starts conserving energy in other areas, reducing non-exercise movement, altering hunger signals, and even adjusting hormonal output. This means that burning more calories isn't a linear or guaranteed path to fat loss. And it explains why so many people train hard and consistently, yet see little to no change in body composition. But this isn't bad news. It's an invitation to understand what actually works. Fat loss isn't just about movement. It's about how movement interacts with your brain, your metabolism, your hormones, and your daily behaviors. Exercise is a powerful lever, but only when you understand how to pull it correctly. When used strategically, it doesn't just burn calories, it reshapes your metabolic pathways, enhances insulin sensitivity, modulates appetite, regulating neuropeptides like leptin and ghrelin, and rewires your brain to favor discipline over impulse. In this episode, we're going to explore 6 science-backed principles that change the way you think about fat loss and exercise permanently. You'll learn why steady-state cardio isn't the most efficient fat-burning tool and what to do instead, the little-known role of muscle mass in resting metabolism, how to time your workouts to sync with your fat-burning hormones, the real neurochemical reason you overeat after exercise, and how to prevent it, why NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, may matter more than the gym itself, and a proven mindset shift that flips your brain from willpower struggle to automatic habit. If you've been working hard and not seeing results, or if you want to train smarter, not just harder, this is for you. The tools ahead are rooted in biology, not bro science. They're designed to help you lose fat sustainably without burning out your motivation, your metabolism, or your sanity. When most people think of losing fat through exercise, they imagine a simple math problem. Burn more calories than you eat. But human biology isn't a calculator. It's a complex adaptive system governed by neurochemistry, hormones, and energy feedback loops. And this system responds to exercise in ways that are far more nuanced and far more powerful than we've been led to believe. Here's what the research shows. When you engage in exercise, especially high intensive movement, you trigger a cascade of hormonal and neurochemical changes that set the stage for fat loss. The most important of these involve 3 key players: insulin, catecholamines, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Let's start with insulin. Insulin is the hormone that helps your cells absorb glucose from the bloodstream. But when it's constantly elevated, which is common in sedentary lifestyles or high sugar diets, it blocks fat burning. That's because your body can't effectively oxidize fat when insulin is high. Now, here's the powerful part. Even a single bout of moderate to intense exercise can increase insulin sensitivity for 24 to 48 hours, according to multiple studies published in the Journal of Applied Physiology and Diabetes Care. This means your muscles become more efficient at pulling in glucose without needing much insulin, freeing your body to use fat as fuel. Then come the catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline. These are the same chemicals your body releases in a fight or flight response, and they play a direct role in mobilizing stored fat. During high intensity or resistance training, these hormones spike. And when they do, they signal your fat cells to release stored triglycerides into the bloodstream to be burned for energy. This process is called lipolysis. Without that hormonal signal, your body holds onto its fat, regardless of how many calories you burn. But there's more. Exercise also increases levels of BDNF, brain-directed neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as Miracle-Gro for your neuron. It enhances neuroplasticity, which makes your brain more adaptable and more capable of habit change. It also reduces depression, regulates appetite, and improves executive function, meaning you're more likely to make disciplined decisions after exercise. A 2018 meta-analysis in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews confirmed that consistent physical activity boosts BDNF levels, particularly after high-effort sessions. So when you move your body, especially with intensity or resistance, you're not just burning calories, you're changing the internal rules for how your body stores and releases energy. You're making your cells more metabolically flexible, your brain more behaviorally resilient, and your hormones more fat-burning friendly. Here's a simple tool to apply this. Exercise protocol, the hormone trigger session. 3 to 4 times per week, perform a short but intense session, 5-minute warm-up, brisk walk or light bike, 20 minutes of resistance training or intervals, e.g. 30 seconds sprint, 90 seconds rest, XX. 5-10 minutes of zone 2 cool down. This session isn't just for burning calories, it's for triggering hormonal cascades. Think of it as a metabolic message to your body. Adapt and get leaner. One more insight, your brain learns to associate certain behaviors with outcomes. So if you finish your workout and immediately reward yourself with junk food or a phone scroll, you weaken the mental link between exercise and intentionality. But if you end your session with a 5-minute walk, some deep breathing, or even journaling a goal, you teach your nervous system to embed exercise as a self-identity behavior. So next time you move your body, don't think of it as burning calories. Think of it as flipping metabolic switches, training your hormones, and rewiring your brain for better decisions and leaner outcomes. Not all cardio is created equal. If you've ever slogged through long runs on a treadmill and felt frustrated by the lack of results, you're not alone. The idea that steady state cardio is the best way to burn fat is outdated and incomplete. Here's what the science shows. To optimize fat loss, you want to leverage 2 very different and very complementary forms of cardiovascular training. High intensity interval training, HIIT, and zone 2 cardio. Together, they create a potent synergy that builds endurance, burns fat, and improves your metabolic flexibility. Let's start with HIIT. This involves short bursts of near maximal effort. Think 20 to 60 seconds of intense sprinting, cycling, or body weight movement, followed by a period of active recovery. Research published in the Journal of Obesity and Metabolism, Clinical and Experimental, shows that HIIT burns more fat in less time than traditional steady-state cardio. But the real advantage lies in something called EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. EPOC is the phenomenon where your body continues to burn calories for hours after the workout is over. Why? Because after high-intensity exercise, your body needs to replenish oxygen, repair tissue, and clear lactate. That process is metabolically expensive. You could think of HIIT as creating a kind of metabolic debt, and repaying that debt burns additional calories, especially from fat, for up to 24 hours post-exercise. Now contrast that with zone 2 cardio, a very different but equally valuable tool. Zone 2 refers to aerobic training at about 60-70% of your maximum heart rate. It's the pace where you can still hold a conversation, but you're definitely working. While it doesn't create as much of an afterburn as HIIT, zone 2 training does something even more fundamental. It enhances mitochondrial density. Mitochondria are the power plants inside your cells, and they're where fat is actually oxidized. The more mitochondria you have and the more efficient they are, the more fat you can burn at rest and during exercise. A 2016 review in Cell Metabolism confirmed that regular zone 2 cardio improves mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria, especially in skeletal muscle. This is crucial because fat oxidation happens inside the mitochondria. You want more factories and you want them working efficiently. So while HIIT is like setting your metabolism on fire, zone 2 is like upgrading your metabolic engine. Here's a simple weekly framework to combine the two. The 3-2 cardio protocol, 3 sessions per week of zone 2 cardio, 30, 45 minutes each, brisk walking, cycling, elliptical, hiking. 2 sessions per week of HIIT, 20, 25 minutes, intervals of 30s sprint /90s rest x6. Optional. Stack a HIIT session after resistance training to maximize EPOC. This combo gives you the best of both worlds, the quick fat burning and appetite suppressing effects of HIIT and the long-term mitochondrial and endurance adaptations of zone 2. But here's the mindset shift. Don't think of cardio as a punishment or a calorie burner. Think of it as a signal to your cells. A signal that says we need more energy, we need to become more efficient, we need to burn fat better. One last insight, cardio timing matters. Research from Frontiers in Physiology suggests that fasted zone 2 training in the morning may amplify fat oxidation, especially for people who have stable blood glucose. On the flip side, HIIT is best done fed to preserve performance and avoid stress overload. So if you're starting your day with a 30-minute walk before breakfast, you're not just moving, you're sending a signal to your mitochondria. And when you finish a tough HIIT session, you're not just tired, you're biochemically primed to burn fat for hours. If this insight is helping you, consider subscribing. There's more where this came from, and each video is packed with real tools to transform how you train, eat, and live. We tend to separate muscle and fat as if they're two entirely different conversations, one about aesthetics, the other about health. But from a metabolic standpoint, they're deeply connected. In fact, building and preserving muscle may be one of the most powerful tools you have for sustainable fat loss. Let's start with a basic physiological truth. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. That means it burns calories, even at rest. But it does more than just increase your basal metabolic rate. Muscle acts as a glucose sink, a fat-burning amplifier, and a metabolic signaler that helps regulate the hormones involved in appetite, energy balance, and inflammation. Here's what the research shows. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people with higher lean muscle mass have significantly better insulin sensitivity, which, as we discussed earlier, is key for unlocking fat metabolism. When you have more muscle, your body becomes better at storing and using glucose, not as fat, but as fuel. In other words, more muscle makes your body less likely to store excess calories as fat. But there's more. Strength training itself, especially compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, and presses, triggers a hormonal response that favors fat loss. One of the key players here is growth hormone, which rises in response to heavy resistance training. Growth hormone helps preserve lean tissue while accelerating lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat. And then there's myokines. These are signaling molecules released by muscles during exercise. You can think of them as messengers that communicate with your brain, liver, and immune system. Some myokines, like irisin, actually help convert white fat into a more metabolically active form called beige fat, which burns energy rather than storing it. This process is known as browning, and it's one of the most exciting frontiers in exercise science. So when people say muscle burns more calories than fat, that's true, but it barely scratches the surface. Muscle acts like an internal pharmacy, releasing molecules that regulate everything from fat oxidation to mood to motivation. Here's a practical takeaway. The muscle-driven fat loss protocol, strength train 3x per week, focusing on full body, compound movements, keep reps in the 6-12 range for hypertrophy, rest 60-90 seconds between sets, ensure progressive overload, gradually increasing weight or reps weekly, optional, add a HIIT finisher, 3 rounds of 30s all-out 90s rest to boost post-workout fat burn. Now, if you're thinking, I don't want to get bulky, let's clear that up. Gaining large amounts of muscle requires a calorie surplus, specific programming, and often years of work. What strength training will actually do, especially in a fat loss phase, is help you retain lean mass while losing fat, giving your body the shape, density, and functionality that makes fat loss visible and sustainable. Have you ever known someone who lost a significant amount of weight only to feel weaker, colder, or more fatigued? Is often the result of losing muscle alongside fat. And that makes future fat loss harder because the body's metabolic engine has shrunk. Muscle protects against this. It's your metabolic insurance policy. And for those in midlife or beyond, resistance training is non-negotiable. After age 30, we naturally lose 3-8% of muscle mass per decade unless we actively fight it. Preserving muscle isn't just about physique, it's about blood sugar regulation, joint protection, and cognitive vitality. A 2019 study in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle even found that low muscle mass correlates with increased mortality risk, independent of fat mass. So the next time you pick up a weight, don't just think about how it changes your body in the mirror. Think about what it's doing to your metabolism, your hormones, and your long-term ability to stay lean for life. Here's a surprising truth. The number of calories you burn in your workouts might be less important than you think, especially when it comes to sustainable fat loss. In fact, one of the most overlooked drivers of fat metabolism isn't your time in the gym, it's your time outside of it. And it's governed by something called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. NEAT refers to all the calories you burn through movement that's not formal exercise. Walking to the kitchen, standing while working, taking the stairs, fidgeting, doing chores, even subtle posture shifts or hand gestures. It may seem small, but it adds up dramatically over the course of a day. Here's what the research shows. In a landmark study published in Science by Dr. James Levine and colleagues, individuals who were similar in age, body weight, and diet showed up to a 2,000 calorie daily difference in energy expenditure, purely due to NEAT. That's the equivalent of running a half marathon without setting foot in a gym. The reason NEAT is so powerful is twofold. It happens over long durations. You might do a 45-minute workout, but NEAT spans 12 to 16 waking hours. It's less taxing on the nervous system. NEAT doesn't spike cortisol or require recovery. That makes it sustainable. Even daily, but here's where it gets really interesting, NEAT tends to drop unconsciously when you enter a calorie deficit. Your brain, wired for survival, senses reduced energy intake and responds by subtly dialing down spontaneous movement. You may not even notice it, but you'll fidget less, walk less, shift in your chair less. Your metabolism is trying to conserve. So if you're cutting calories but not losing fat, it might not be your diet. It might be that your NEAT has dropped without you realize it. That's why monitoring and increasing NEAT is one of the smartest things you can do during a fat loss phase. Here's a simple tool to apply. The 10K plus micro movement protocol aimed for 10,000 steps per day, broken into 2 to 3 walks, morning, post-meal, evening. Add a 5-minute walk after each meal to blunt blood sugar and boost fat oxidation. Incorporate micro movement windows, 5 minutes every hour where you stretch, stand, or pace. Use a standing desk or floor sitting for 30-50% of your work time to encourage unconscious movement. You don't have to micromanage every calorie, but managing your movement environment, that's a high leverage habit. Try this mental shift. Don't just go to the gym. Live like someone who moves. Park farther away. Walk while on calls. Put your phone across the room. Do calf raises while brushing your teeth. It sounds silly until you realize you're stacking hundreds of extra movements per day that cost zero willpower. The key is consistency. A 15-minute walk may only burn 60, 80 calories, but do it every day for a month and you've burned the equivalent of nearly a pound of fat without needing to suffer through long cardio sessions. And because NEAT doesn't feel like exercise, it doesn't trigger the same psychological pushback. You're not depleting motivation, you're just changing your lifestyle default. If this insight gave you a new lens on fat loss, leave a like or a comment. It really helps grow this channel and reach more people who need this information. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Every video is built to give you tools grounded in real science that can actually change your body and mind. You can train hard, eat clean, and stay active all day, but if you're not sleeping well, fat loss can stall. And it's not just about feeling tired, it's about what's happening hormonally, metabolically, and neurologically when you don't sleep, especially when it comes to cortisol. Let's start with the basics. Cortisol is a stress hormone released by your adrenal glands. It's not inherently bad. In fact, it's essential for survival. Cortisol helps regulate blood sugar, energy availability, and alertness. But when cortisol stays elevated chronically, particularly due to poor sleep or psychological stress, it directly sabotages fat loss. Here's what the research shows. A 2010 study in Annals of Internal Medicine found that people on a calorie-restricted diet who slept only 5.5 hours per night lost 55% less fat and 60% more lean muscle compared to those who slept 8.5 hours, despite identical diets and training. That's a radical shift in body composition driven solely by sleep. Why does this happen? Because lack of sleep increases cortisol levels, and cortisol triggers the release of glucose into the bloodstream, a process called gluconeogenesis. This is helpful in a fight or flight scenario, but in a modern context, it creates elevated blood sugar, reduced insulin sensitivity, and increased fat storage, especially in the abdominal area where cortisol receptors are most concentrated. Even worse, sleep deprivation dysregulates your hunger hormones. Ghrelin increases, driving cravings, and leptin decreases, making it harder to feel full. So you end up hungrier, with worse blood sugar control, and a body that's more prone to storing fat, even if you're eating the same amount. Have you ever noticed that after a bad night's sleep, you crave more sugar, feel emotionally reactive, or have less energy to move your body? That's not weakness, it's biology. Your brain is trying to compensate for missing restorative functions by driving up short-term energy-seeking behaviors. Here's what's happening in your brain. Poor sleep impairs activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making and impulse control, while increasing activity in the amygdala, your emotional response center. The result? You become more likely to snack impulsively, skip workouts, or reach for comfort foods. Not because you lack discipline, but because your brain's operating system is running on low power mode. Now, the solution isn't just sleep more. It's optimize the timing, depth, and consistency of your sleep so that cortisol stays in its natural rhythm. The fat loss sleep protocol: aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep with a fixed wake time, even on weekends. Avoid bright overhead lights after sunset. Use warm, dim lighting to simulate dusk. Cut off caffeine 8-10 hours before bed. Alcohol 3-4 hours before. Do a 10-minute wind down ritual, journaling, stretching, or non-stimulating reading. Get morning sunlight exposure within 30-60 minutes of waking to anchor your circadian rhythm. And here's a lesser known but powerful tool: sleep your way through your fat burning window. Research shows that the majority of fat oxidation during sleep happens in the latter half of the night, roughly hours 5-8. So if you routinely sleep only 5 or 6 hours, you're literally cutting off the most potent fat burning hours of your entire day. If you've been stuck at a plateau, this may be the missing link. Your hormones are the software that tell your body what to do with the food and movement you give it. Sleep is the nightly reboot that ensures that software is running correctly. And perhaps most importantly, improving sleep doesn't just help you lose fat, it gives you back emotional resilience, motivation, and mental clarity, which are the psychological engines behind every long-term transformation. Let's talk about cardio, and let's start by challenging a common belief. Cardio is not your primary fat loss tool. It's a supporting actor, not the star of the show. Despite decades of messaging around fat burning zones and calories in, VAS out, the real science of fat loss, especially sustainable fat loss, reveals something more nuanced. Yes, cardio burns calories, but that's not why it matters most. Here's what the research shows. Long duration cardio, especially steady state zone 2 work, doesn't just tap into fat stores for fuel, it also improves mitochondrial density, insulin sensitivity, and aerobic efficiency, all of which prime your body to use fat more effectively during the other 23 hours of your day. To understand this, Let's look at a 2021 study in cell metabolism. It found that zone 2 cardio, the pace where you can still talk but feel like you're working, increases the number and efficiency of mitochondria, your cellular power plants. More mitochondria mean better energy regulation, faster fat oxidation, and less fatigue. In short, you become a better fat-burning machine, even at rest. Now contrast that with high-intensity interval training, HIIT. Yes, HIIT can burn more calories per minute and elevate post-exercise oxygen consumption, EPOC, sometimes called the afterburn effect. But it also generates more neurological fatigue and cortisol, which, when overdone, especially in a calorie deficit, can backfire. This is why many people report feeling burnt out, hungrier, and more inflamed after weeks of daily high HI. The intensity is too high, too often, and the nervous system can't keep up. So the real shift in mindset is this. Cardio isn't for punishment, it's for capacity. Capacity to recover from strength training, a capacity to oxidize fat throughout the day, capacity to regulate stress, sleep, and inflammation. Here's a simple protocol to apply. The strategic cardio framework, 2 or 3 10-minute periods of zone 2 cardio, 30 to 45 minutes each, e.g. incline treadmill walk, cycling, rowing, light jog, 1 session per week of HIIT or sprint intervals, no more than 20-25 minutes total, optional. Low intensity walks on recovery days helps with NEAT and lymphatic flow. Track your heart rate. Zone 2 is roughly 60-70% of your max, or the nose breathing threshold. Zone 2 cardio is especially powerful for people who are metabolically inflexible, meaning their bodies default to burning carbs even at rest. This inflexibility is linked with insulin resistance, cravings, and belly fat accumulation. But regular, low-intensity aerobic work retrains the system. It teaches your body to prefer fat as a fuel, not just during exercise, but all day long. And there's a mental benefit too. Steady-state cardio becomes a time for clarity, to think, reflect, breathe. It's meditative. It gets you outside. It connects your body with your mind in a low-pressure, non-performative way. Over time, this relationship with movement becomes something you crave, not something you have to do. Have you felt burned out from cardio before? That may be a signal, not of weakness, but of misaligned intensity. Cardio works best when it's consistent, gentle, and targeted. The bottom line, cardio is not a magic pill. It's not how you burn off last night's dessert. It's a tool for building a metabolic engine that hums efficiently even while you sleep. We've covered a lot, and now let's bring it all together. Not just as a checklist of strategies, but as a new way to think about fat loss. You've learned that exercise isn't just about burning calories. It's about changing your biology, shifting the internal conditions that make fat loss not only possible, but sustainable. You now understand that the muscle is your fat burning engine, and resistance training builds the machinery that keeps your metabolism high. NEAT, the small everyday movements, is the silent giant of calorie expenditure, and it's 100% behavioral. Timing matters. Training in a fasted state taps into hormonal windows that favor fat oxidation. Nutrition and training must sync. Carbs and protein around workouts fuel performance and recovery, while fasting at other times supports fat mobilization. Sleep and cortisol play a massive role. When your nervous system is off balance, fat loss stalls, no matter how hard you train. Cardio is a tool, not a punishment. The right kind of cardio builds capacity, improves fat oxidation, and enhances recovery. Each of these insights isn't just science, it's strategy. And when combined, they don't just burn fat, they reprogram your physiology to work with you, not against you. But perhaps the most important takeaway is this. Fat loss is a signal of system-wide health. It's a downstream effect of metabolic balance, nervous system regulation, movement quality, and consistent behaviors. When those pieces are in place, fat loss becomes less of a fight and more of a flow. And that's why the goal isn't to burn off fat, it's to build the internal landscape where fat is no longer chronically stored. It's about creating conditions, hormonal, behavioral, emotional, that support the body's natural rhythm. Because your body wants to be lean, but it only releases fat when it feels safe, well nourished, and well recovered. So the next time you think, I need to do more cardio, ask instead, is my body ready to release fat, or is it still in survival mode? This is the new model, one built on science, not suffering, on biology, not blame, on strategy, not shame. Now, here's your challenge for today. Pick one tool from this video, just one, and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. Maybe it's adding a 45-minute zone 2 walk. Maybe it's resistance training 3x/week. Or maybe it's simply protecting your sleep window like your life depends on it, because it does. Start with one, make it real, make it yours, then build from there. And if this video helped clarify the truth about fat loss, not the hype, but the real, grounded, science-based path, then I invite you to join this community. Like, comment, and subscribe. We're here to grow together, not just in body, but in mind, discipline, and long-term well-being. Because at the end of the day, how you lose fat matters more than how fast you lose it. And when you do it right, with strategy, with science, with self-respect, you don't just lose fat, you gain something far more powerful, agency over your own biology.